So a bit of a different episode, because this is a best of episode, which some may think is a bit of a piss take. However, we're going to be busy and or away over the next couple of weeks. So we've edited some of the answers to our standard questions with our guests. So hopefully if you've just found this one and it's a best of, then you'll go back and listen to the full episodes, which are all available wherever you get your podcasts. So enjoy the best of episode, and we'll be back very soon with a brand new guest. If you want to get involved, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for How I Vegan Podcast.
And if you want to email us, get in touch at howiveganpodcast@gmail.com. What's your vegan story?
So for me, I became vegetarian when I was 18, and I can pinpoint the moment when I did that because I was in my flat and I was cooking something with minced cow, and the fat was coming out of it, and I just looked at it and thought, my God, this was someone that was alive, and I've got bits of their body and I'm cooking them, and there's blood and there's fat, and I just put the lot in the bin, never touched it after that. Meat just completely went. So it took me a bit longer to get to know veganism and what it was about. This is all pre-social media, so there weren't any of the activists that were available for people to be educated by, and it was just really what you picked up from other people, and I didn't know any other vegetarians really. So yeah, once I learned about the horrors of the egg industry, the dairy industry, and that I could be perfectly happy and be perfectly healthy, if not more so, without all that stuff, then when I was about 28, so it took me about 10 years, I became vegan. And so that's now 17-ish years veganism. So that's how I am here today.
Fantastic. 17 years is tremendous. You are, I think, does that qualify you as one of our ancient vegans, Wes?
I imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a recur. People who have been vegan for a long time, not people who are ancient. I'll just qualify that.
Yeah.
The term of endearment, nothing more.
It's absolutely positive. Yeah, so mine's a bit strange in the sense that obviously, so Carrie and I have been together a long time, and we were together before she became vegetarian. And in some ways, I've kind of gone along and followed in the footsteps, but it's just taken me a hell of a lot longer to get there. But I suppose in some ways, because I'm quite lazy when it comes to cook. Well, no, I don't do any cooking. So from a food perspective, when I've been kind of at home, I'd always sort of, you'd cooked me for a while. Cooked me stuff.
Me for you for a while, didn't I? And then gradually I was like, no, can't even do that now.
No, and then because you do all the cooking, I just didn't bother. And I suppose as Carrie was going through her journey, there was, there was the food aspect, but there was also the, understanding more about the agriculture industry and what happens. And I suppose for a while I switched off because, I just didn't want to know the usual sort of cognitive dissonance. And then at a certain point, I think, and I can't pinpoint when it was, but mostly at home, I then just didn't, I just didn't have any animal products because we just didn't have any in the house. But then my biggest issue was that I used to travel a lot for work in different countries. And although sort of things were changing in the UK, when I was kind of going to France and I was out with colleagues, if you said that you were vegan, not only did they, at best, they didn't really understand. At worst, that you got some really nasty looks. So, but then probably about 6-ish years ago, I kind of thought, well, actually, I don't want to kind of use that excuse anymore. It might be inconvenient if I can't eat something whilst I'm out, but I can always eat something. And so probably about 6 years ago, I kind of started to make a switch, and then I think I probably went fully vegan about 5 years or just over 5 years ago. But I do remember that there was a time I switched jobs in the same company about 5 years ago, and I was introduced to my new team as a vegan, and actually at that time I wasn't quite there, and I kind of on the spot thought, well, what do I do here? Because, you know, do I come and say, well, actually I'm not quite? And I thought, oh, blow it, this is just the kick that I need. And that was it. But yeah, it's a kind of, it took me a long time to catch up with Carrie, and you'll probably hear this theme all through the
Running, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Very funny. Yeah.
It's kind of been a lifetime journey for me. So I thought about this, and just going back as early as I can remember, I have never ever wanted to eat meat. I've never wanted to eat animals. Just as soon as I knew what meat was and where it came from, I didn't want to eat it. And in fact, my mum had this wonderful, wonderful memory of me. I believe I was about age 3, so that kind of age, very, very young. And she was cooking the Sunday roast. And I kind of toddled up to her as she did. And I said, oh, what are you cooking, Mum? And she went, oh, I'm cooking roast pork. And apparently with this absolute look of disgust on my face, I went, that's a dead pig. And she kind of went, oh, where's that come from? And just kind of from there, sort of over quite a long period of time, I was like, I don't want to eat meat, don't want to eat it. I know it's animals, don't want to eat it. And my mum was not convinced that this was a very good idea for me to not eat meat. I think at the time, I just thought she was being difficult and obstructive. And as an adult, I can look back and I think she just had no experience of vegetarianism, didn't know what it was, didn't know how you would possibly be able to bring up a child without eating meat. And so there was kind of no discussion to be had. But kind of the first major turning point happened when I was maybe about 9. And I was like mad into ponies. Everything was about ponies and horse riding. And I used to have magazines, like pony magazines. And I remember reading this article about ponies being exported for horse meat. And I went, that is it. That is absolutely the end of it. I refuse to eat any more meat. And so kind of that was stage 1. That was where like I was put my foot down, no more, not going to eat meat. And there was a bit of compromise to be had. My mum was still not dead keen on this idea. So we kind of compromised. And for many, many years, I was pescatarian. So that was kind of where things started. And I guess the next turning point was when I finally left home, moved out, and I kind of thought, oh, I could do my own thing now. don't have to eat this fish anymore. So in my early 20s, I went vegetarian. And I think in the back of my mind, I kind of always knew that the whole, production of dairy, the production of eggs was not really that ethical. But as you do, you kind of block it out and you think, yeah, well, it's not that bad. And, the cows are well looked after and, I'll buy the free range eggs and all that kind, all the things you try and convince yourself. But it just niggled away in the back of my mind. And I don't really know what took me to finally taking the plunge to go vegan, but I did. That was 6 years ago and never looked back. I cannot ever imagine wanting to eat meat, dairy, eggs, anything like that ever again. It just kind of felt right.
I mean, if someone had said to me, like say January, February last year, if someone had said, right, go fast forward a year and a half, you're going to be vegan, I genuinely just spat out anything that I was drinking. Like, never in cat in hell's chance am I ever going to become vegan. I'm not interested. Like, I love my steak, I love like my fried chicken, all that kind of stuff, But probably what changed things was a year before that. So around about April 2019, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. Luckily, they kind of caught it a couple of months before it spread anywhere further than just her breast. So luckily, they were able to remove it. You know, she had a mastectomy and everything, and they kind of removed everything. So she's in remission now. But she's kind of had this, like, I guess you would, like, you know, if you've come that close, she's had this fear of it coming back. So she's obviously been looking up and researching different ways of kind of stopping it coming back, you know, and there's a lot on YouTube. I mean, I guess you guys are familiar with Dr. Gregor. Like, he's a plant-based food advocate, you know, and there's a few other guys that she's sort of looked up as well. And this is where I'm going to do a little bit of embellishing. Okay, hope you don't mind. I've actually written it down because I want to make this, even though I'm going to embellish it, like, this is kind of how I like to imagine it happened. Okay, so it was one Saturday evening in May last year, and my wife and I sitting in front of the television. Okay, she turns to me with a remote control in her hand, right? Okay, and she says, right, think the Netflix and don't think the Matrix here. Okay, she says, I can put on a crime documentary, the story ends and you wake up tomorrow and believe whatever you want to believe, or we watch the Game Changers and you enter Wonderland to see how deep the rabbit hole goes. Now, I did not want to take that red pill. And genuinely, I didn't want to, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be told something that's going to be uncomfortable for me and it's going to change my way of life. So I'm not interested. But in the end, I thought, do you know what? Let's take it. Let's dive in. So we watched that Game Changers, and then after that, we watched What the Health. So we watched those two documentaries in once, and I swear, that was the last day I ever consumed any meat or dairy, intentionally anyway. That was the day.
So yeah, I went vegetarian in the second half of the 90s, and it was a combination of seeing a lot of footage on TV, and it was the period also of the live transports and a lot of protests against it between the UK and the continent. Also ships that arrived in Belgium, and a lot of footage of that on TV. And we had foot and mouth disease. We had a lot of crisis in agriculture, the foot and mouth disease. I don't know if you guys remember those days, but I'm probably a little bit older than you are.
Yeah,
and we had also,
and mad cow disease as well.
Mad cow disease as well. And so all those crises. And as a coincidence, I picked up a second-hand copy of the book Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. It was translated in Dutch, and I had already participated in some activism against the use of animals in experimentation. And then I started reading Animal Liberation and also ecofeminist books like the work from Carol Adams and such. And that started the whole thing. And I became vegetarian then. And then I thought, I'm vegetarian now, I'm doing enough. But I was wrong. And it's only many years later when veganism became more known. And I did research. After graduating, I did research in criminology. I worked at university, and I did my doctoral research on anthropocentrism and speciesism in criminology. So that was around the year 2000. And then after university, I worked in social youth care, and then as a policy advisor for the Flemish government. And although I had left academia for many years, but I was the first, in 2009, the first big international conference of human animal studies, critical animal studies. And I saw the announcement of that conference, and I thought, these were all the people that I had read books from and that I had used in my research. And I said, I want to go to this conference just to see them, to participate. And it was in Australia. So my husband and me, we went to Australia to do the conference and also did a holiday. And there at the conference we were, and that was the first time I was in an environment with 200, 300 people. And I think nearly everybody was vegan there. And it was the first time. And it was like, wow, they were even angry. I heard comments that the food at the conference was not vegan, but it was merely vegetarian, and was like really an eye-opener for me. And at that conference was also Carol Adams was there, and she, you know, she's like my I won't say hero, but a real big inspiration for me. She's always been I've read so many of her books, and I wanted to take the opportunity to go talk to her. And I said, hi, I'm Trudi from Belgium, and I'm so inspired by you, and you helped me for my doctoral research and everything. And then she just asked me, and are you vegan? And I said, no, I'm vegetarian. And that was, yeah, okay, there it kind of clicked over there. It's really ironic that it had to be at the other side of the world. Because, yeah, by that time, there was also vegan activism in Belgium, you know, but vegan activism at that time in Belgium was more like, oh, not say the word vegan too much because that can scare people away. Let's use the word veggie instead. And, you know, the Thursday Veggie Day campaigns, and not really straight out vegan activism. But so at that conference, it was all, I was surrounded by other vegan activists, animal rights activists, and that's where it clicked. And so, yeah, afterwards we came home, and then gradually in that year, I can't say that it was from one day to the next, but in the course of a couple of months, then my husband and me, we went vegan together. We also went vegetarian together in the 90s, and then in 2009, 2010, we went vegan together.
What was the hardest thing for you at the time?
Well, for me, I didn't find anything a struggle, because once I'd decided that's what I was going to do, that's what I did. You know, I was going to be vegan, and I learned and made mistakes along the way, but I can't say anything in particular was a struggle, because I ceased to see the things that I had previously seen as food anymore. So when people, you hear about people that have decided they want to be vegan and they continue to eat things, or they have a craving for something and they give in to that craving. For me, that was never an issue, because it ceased to be food. So I found that easy. The worst thing, I think, the biggest struggle was other people, particularly people who you might care about, and you know they're good people, but then when you try and explain, they just shut off. They don't want to know, or worse, they do know and still continue to partake in animal products, animal abuse. They're paying for it. They know that they are. And I find that quite difficult even now, I think more so now than when I first became vegan. Found that difficult to relate to, and like, why can you not make those changes? It's easy. Why do you continue to say you care when you don't? And that, I think, is the biggest struggle. So yeah, for me.
Yeah, it's similar to me, really. Personally, not much of a struggle. I suppose, picking up, you know, the previous theme about, you know, my job, I work with a lot of people, and I used to travel really a lot, and so, you know, traveling around, it's kind of, I suppose it's more of an inconvenience that I was forever kind of having to explain. And Carrie and I are quite different in some respects of, you know, I don't feel particularly comfortable talking about my personal life. Here I am on a podcast.
but it's all right, no one's listening, don't worry. No one's listening.
In a work environment, I kind of, you know, I don't necessarily bring my personal life. I didn't bring my personal life to work, yet kind of that forced it to cross a boundary. And I kind of, on many times during a week, because I'd be going from one part of the business to the other, I'd kind of have to repeat and explain myself, and then you'd kind of get the questions, and
it's like did a table outreach, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, some people were, you get all the usual sort of comments, and people thinking that they're funny and the jokes and stuff. And but you know, it was just repetitive, lots and lots of them. Not sort of nasty people, but it just weren't really aware. So
slows you down after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it has been that, maybe that feeling of kind of having to perhaps compromise for others, which I probably haven't ever had to do. It's probably been like almost a self-imposed pressure, you know, that right back from childhood. Well, I wanted to be vegetarian, but I had to compromise. And, you know, that kind of maybe stuck with me a bit, that being vegetarian, being vegan, it was a bit awkward, a bit difficult for other people. You know, if you go out somewhere and you're the only vegan in the group, and wherever you're going to eat, where everybody can get something that they want, and that kind of thing. I think I found that difficult for quite a long time. I think one of the other things that I really struggled with for quite some time, when I first went vegan, I did a lot of reading, spent a lot of time online, joined Facebook groups, that kind of thing. And I discovered that being vegan isn't quite as black and white as you think. Everybody has their own interpretation of what it means. And however vegan you are, there will always be somebody who is more vegan than you, and they'll be quite happy they will be quite happy to tell you about it and point out where you are not being vegan enough.
Yeah.
And I really, really struggled with that in the beginning. But I think I've reached a point where actually I think I don't care. If you don't think I'm vegan enough, I don't care. We're actually all on the same side here. Let's not kind of pick holes in each other. Let's just appreciate we're all on the same journey here and go with it.
I know this is gonna seem so such a simple problem, but do you know what it is? I really used to love my chocolate. Okay, and now finding a vegan friendly chocolate bar, I know there are some out there, and do you know what? Tesco have brought out, I don't know if you guys have seen the plant kitchen ones, which taste fantastic. But even sometimes I'll go into a supermarket and you just think, I really fancy a chocolate bar, and you'll go in there and you'll be like, there literally is not one single one here I can have, not one.
As a vegan, well, I would say that certainly in the beginning, you're not really sure yet, and you don't want to make too much of a fuss. But you know, those were in the beginning years. I'm much more confident now, and I'm vegan is who I am and what I am, and I very strongly believe in it. But it can still be hard in social at certain social occasions. You know, work parties or family gatherings. And especially, like, for example, when you are invited to a wedding from some of your friends or family, and then you have to deal with the caterer, but you are not the one who is paying for the caterer, so you already have to be careful with not treading on any toes. And those circumstances can be difficult. So social things. But I would say that that's just a practical side, you know, you can overcome that. I've had occasions that I always have backup, you know, like energy bars, and you can overcome an evening with just some bread and fruit, and that's not really a problem. But psychologically, I think it's sometimes more difficult when you realize how much animal use and abuse there is in the world, and that can be hard as a vegan. I think that that's even more hard. That's harder than the practical side. All the practical issues can be overcome. You know, we live in a very privileged side of the world, where most of us can afford to buy food, and you know, we have access to food. So those practical issues can be overcome by most people here, but the psychological side can be very difficult.
What did your friends and family think about it?
Yeah, I didn't ask them really. This is what I'm doing, like it or lump it kind of thing. I think it became more of a thing for family when we had children. We've got two children, one who's 12 and one who's 14, and they've been vegan throughout their life. So I've had 2 vegan pregnancies, and births, and now I've got these 2 lifelong vegan tween and a teen. Yeah, so I think there was more of the questioning whether we were doing the right thing. Or at the time, it was obviously I was the only vegan, and it just seemed, I think partly it was kind of like as if I was forcing them to do something, because Chris was still at that point eating meat, but was wholeheartedly fine and happy and supportive with the children being brought up vegan. But I always felt that kind of pressure on me and me alone to make sure that everything was okay nutritionally for them. I wasn't damaging them in any way. on the opposite side of that, I don't think anyone questioned the rest of the family on their upbringing of their children eating KFC and McDonald's. So that was never questioned. But yeah, so it's kind of like, are you sure this is okay? And where are they going to get this from? And that kind of questioning. But in terms of me personally, I'm sure lots of things were said behind my back, but nothing was said to my face in terms of derogatory comments or anything like that that I can recall.
Yeah. And I think we're both quite strongly principled people, and I think that kind of has come through in other ways, not related to veganism as well. So I think just in terms of our characters, it probably wasn't too much of a surprise, and for me, I mean, it was not even a thing really, because Carrie had paved the way for that to happen, and they were probably thinking it's not kind of if, it's just when. So I can't even remember if there was any kind of reaction at that time.
No.
But they probably wouldn't. I mean,
they wouldn't say it to us.
They wouldn't say it anyway, because we were, we're strongly principled.
Yeah, it's not going to be influenced by what they say, so there's no point in saying it to us. It's that kind of thing. But
they were actually a lot more accepting than I thought they were going to be. I think my friends particularly, I was a bit worried about telling them, I've gone vegan, it's still a little bit weird, still not that many people. And they just kind of all went, okay. And I was like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. That's good. My mum took a while to come round to it, but she got there in the end. I think it probably wasn't any great surprise. And I get probably a bit of ribbing from my brother, but he's my brother. If it wasn't being vegan, it would be something else. So I think really on the whole, people have been a lot more accepting, a lot more positive about it than I really ever anticipated. So I kind of braced myself for this this like big thing, and it really wasn't. So that was good.
On the whole, they were kind of fine about it. There was an occasion I remember we went to my wife's parents' house, and we found, I think they found a Chinese that had about 2 or 3 vegan options, and you kind of sit there and they're like, oh, here's the vegan options, and it's like you're being given this really alien food that no one would ever go near or touch, and you just think there's so much food that you eat that is vegan, any fruit, any vegetable. It's like they've got this label, haven't they, and they're like, right, that's vegan food, so we don't touch the vegan food. So, and I genuinely was like, try it. No, it's fine. You've probably eaten all of these ingredients, right, at some point. It's just because it has that label on it. It's not something to be scared of, But I find the biggest one is my dad. Like my dad will phone me and he'll say, I've just had a roast dinner, like with chicken, and he'll go, oh, sorry, I apologise, didn't mean to say chicken. Dad, you haven't got to apologise. I'm not offended. It's like he's really uncomfortable about, like, how do I kind of interact with him now?
Yeah, they were already sort of used to it because we were vegetarian for so long before it, and although it was a bigger step, because on family gatherings and all, they would give us cheese, and always cheese, the vegetarians are cheese. So when we then eventually said, well, no cheese anymore, that was really, so what can we give them now? So that was a bit tricky, but in the beginning, and now still sometimes, we bring our own food, and gradually, veganism has grown so much. And I even have, like my sister-in-law and other family members that start asking for recipes, and their children also being vegan curious and looking for recipes. So it is growing. It is changing. I wouldn't say they're not negative. They're slightly positive. Although it's a pity that none of my friends that I've met as being non-vegan have turned vegan meanwhile. So I would like to see that more.
Where do you get your protein?
Well, I'm assuming I do get it from somewhere, having not eaten meat for most of my life now. Yeah, I don't like fake meats. I've never, because I think initially the thing that turned me off wasn't so much, the thing that turned me off of meat was the meat itself being an animal, but then I associated the smell and the taste with the animal. So for me, it wasn't something I enjoyed ever. I think as a child even, I never enjoyed eating meat. So I still don't eat that kind of stuff. And I prefer to, because I'm lucky enough that I do cook a lot, I don't eat much processed food. So yeah, just good whole foods really, as much as possible. The grains, pulses, whole grains, fruits, vegetables. I do eat tofu. So yeah, that's another good source. So yeah, just having a bit of everything, a bit of variety, but trying to keep your diet as clean as possible. Obviously some treats, but yeah, on the whole, sort of keeping it as many raw ingredients that you're using rather than relying on processed stuff, for me is how I feel best.
Yeah, I think if you saw my body shape relative to Carrie's, you'd see that I have all of that plus a little bit more. So I do. Well, it's interesting. I do quite like some of the fake meaty stuff. And I suppose from the early days, probably, if you think I went vegan sort of just over 5 years ago, there was stuff coming out then, but it wasn't very realistic back then. But I actually developed quite a liking for that, all the stuff that was coming out. And I think what's quite interesting for me is that obviously now, more recently, some of the newer products are very, very realistic in terms of look, taste, smell, and I don't like that so much. I actually prefer the soya products which are a little bit, but not quite there. It's really weird, but I've got used to it. The same with like soy milk, for example. I got used to the taste of it. And so, I quite like it now, but some people never get to that point. And so I have all of that Carrie said, plus, the some of the soy products as well.
Pea protein, things like that, yeah.
Certainly don't feel deficient in protein.
Is it really facetious of me just to go, well, plants?
No, that's fine. That's absolutely fine, because that's true.
It's not really that big an issue, is it? Right. It's like the ultimate question, like, oh, where do you get your protein from? Where do you get your calcium from? Where do you get your B12 from? And it's like, well, just eat some plants, and eat lots of different plants and eat lots of different colors and lots of different types of food, and you're going to be fine. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just eat lots of different stuff, lots of different colors, and you're sorted. Yeah. And a vegan society tablet once a day. There we go.
I swear the people that ask you that have got no idea how much protein what their protein intake is. They've got absolutely no idea whatsoever. But somehow, you're the one that's got to prove how much protein you're taking. Yeah. But I for me, obviously the B12 is a supplement that I guess most of us have to take, don't we? Because it's fairly difficult to get in sort of I know you can get it in different products. I think it's got to be fortified, isn't it? Like fortified oat milk and things like that. So I'll literally take one multivitamin a day, and I found so maybe about 4 or 5 months into following a plant-based diet, being vegan, is I started to really crave fish, really crave fish, and then I realised that I wasn't taking an omega-3 supplement. And I found a multivitamin just on Amazon, I think it was, and it's obviously a vegan one, and it's a seaweed, so it's where the fish get it from anyway, which is the same as our protein.
That's a real bingo question, isn't it? Only animal products have protein in them, of course. There are plenty of plant-based products that also have protein, and I'm not going to give a nutritional education here, but if you just eat varied and balanced, you get your protein from from peas and everything, and beans, and yeah, tofu is from beans. And so yeah, I just try to eat as balanced and as much variety as I can. And then protein isn't even an issue. It's not something that I really think about every day. I have to have my protein. If you just eat enough vegetables and fruits and grains and nuts and seeds, and you have everything that you need, Then as for other things, the only thing that as vegans we have to be careful about is getting B12, the vitamin B12. So that it's important that you have fortified foods with B12, or that you take a supplement as B12. So that's actually the only thing that you have to be careful about. But if you eat varied and balanced, then there can't be really any issues, unless you have a gastrointestinal disorder or a disease or something that you cannot take in some nutrition. So that's possible.
How have things changed for you?
No, I mean, I think for me, having been sort of vegetarian on my own, then I became vegan on my own. I suppose it was nice when Chris became vegan, because it was like, yay, we've now got a vegan household, and it was that kind of nice feeling, knowing that when we went out for dinner, I wasn't thinking, is he going to put cheese on that, or is he going to have the chicken with that, where it could be a vegan option. That was the thing that used to get me. There'll be a meal and you go to one of these chain restaurants and you could pay to add cheese or pay to add some chicken to what was a vegan dish. And it's that sort of like, that's one of the things you used to do, is add bits, and then that stopped. And I really liked that fact that as I could guarantee that you could just have the vegan menu, it was fine. So yeah, I don't think anything particularly changed for me, because it was just felt right, it felt normal. I think in terms of becoming vegan, it's opened up in our friend groups. We've got such a diverse groups of friends now. I do activism, so I mean nearly all of my friends, people I'm socialize with, is through either running, vegan runners, or through activism. So you do kind of find yourself in a little bubble of vegan people, and it's quite a shock then to realize that other people aren't actually vegan when you bump into those people on occasion. So yeah,
I wouldn't say it has been a huge change. I kind of eat some slightly different foods, and maybe my shopping habits are a little bit different. If I go clothes shopping, then okay, I don't buy stuff that's got leather in it or wool in it, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's a big changes. So overall, I wouldn't say it's been a massive change.
I think, yeah, so I definitely noticed a difference physically. And I think it was a couple of things, really. I mean, certainly I felt much healthier. And bearing in mind that I was already sort of mostly eating vegan at home, but that switch to fully vegan, I certainly felt healthier. The only other time that's kind of I've noticed it that much is I gave up sort of alcohol about just coming up to a year ago, and noticed a big difference then as well. But I think one thing you probably noticed, and maybe this is a bit too much information, but where I was at a certain point eating sort of dairy,
yeah,
and we particularly dairy, milk and cheese, you could smell it, and it's got that sour kind of linger to it, and sweat. It kind of
body
comes.
smell changes.
Yeah, your body smell change. That's the good way to describe it.
That's the clean way to say.
And
describe all the various things.
Yeah, and I think when my body was kind of cleansed of that, I too became a lot more sensitive to that in others.
Probably one of the most significant things is that since becoming vegan, I also became a runner. And just getting to know other vegans has been fantastic. Okay, I make a bit of a joke about some vegans, and maybe, like not getting on with other vegans, or perhaps having a problem with other vegans, but kind of on an individual basis, all the vegans that I've met have been just lovely, really nice people. And I'm so pleased to be able to call some of them friends of mine now. And I think that's actually just been a really nice thing. to have found a community of like-minded people. You know, we're all kind of on the same page with it. You've always got things in common. So yeah, that's been a really lovely thing, actually.
Well, obviously, I know I touched on it earlier, but it's just how, you know, my health and my fitness. Obviously, I've got the running that's come with it. You know, I wasn't a runner before, so it's not just being vegan, but the two things combined, being vegan and running, has just completely changed me. The way I look, the way I feel. I mean, we talk about TikTok and some of the trolls on there. I did have a troll a month or so ago that was trying all they could to upset me, and in the end they said, well, you don't realize that you're talking to someone that's really young, and what are you, like 30? And I'm like, I'm 43. I'll take that.
Well, yeah, I think there was a huge difference between being a vegetarian and then turning vegan, because vegetarian was mainly focused, for us at least, was mainly focused on just the food aspect, while being vegan, of course, as a vegetarian, I also try to look at products that were not tested on animals, but being vegan is much broader, is more in all aspects of your lifestyle, and in all aspects, and everything that you buy and everything that you do, veganism transpires. So yeah, that at that point that has changed a lot. But for me now, being vegan, how I've changed in those 12, 13 years, because there has been an evolution. I'm not the same vegan anymore like I was in the beginning. I feel much more at ease now being vegan, you know. In the beginning, I was more like also an outcast. Veganism wasn't so well known. I'm talking about 2009, 2010. So that was, it was much more difficult. For some people it can still be difficult now, but you have so many options now, and so many products that are labeled vegan, and it's become so much easier, and I'm feeling so much comfortable with being vegan now. I wouldn't say I was afraid before to say to people that I'm vegan, but now when we're speaking to people that I've never met before, for example, and let's say they come around with cake and I say, no, thank you. And they will ask, oh, don't you want any cake? I have no problem anymore with saying, oh, no, I'm vegan, and explaining why. Whilst in the beginning, I found those social situations to be more difficult, but now I don't find them so difficult anymore.
What advice would you give to anyone who's thinking about going vegan?
Well, I would, me being me, I would probably just say, just do it, you know, just, if that's what you want to do, just get on and do it, you know. You'll learn along the way. Don't expect some epiphany, some moment when everything will be perfect and the planets will align and you'll suddenly say, yes, I'm vegan today. Just stop eating animals, you know, stop eating their secretions and cook and explore. And secretions is a horrible word, isn't it? But yeah, just stop kind of worrying about it. Just get on and do it, you know. And yeah, people make mistakes as they go along, but I think that's just the best way of learning. Explore all these new products. You get to try foods that you probably haven't tried before, meet people that you wouldn't have met before, you know, just immerse yourself in it. But I know that isn't always possible for most people, not a lot of people, but yeah, to just embrace it rather than baby steps. Today I will not have this and tomorrow I won't have that. I think people overthink it sometimes.
For me, I'd just say speak to Carrie. And that's partly because I'm not good at that kind of conversation. It's my own thing, and I'm not, you know, I'm just not good at that conversation, and I don't kind of naturally try and enter that. But I, in all seriousness though, I also think, you know, just as Carrie said, you know, we've always been the kind of people of just get on and do stuff. So just kind of do it, really.
So I know I think I did mention it before, is so if I'm chatting to anybody and it looks like they're interested as opposed to just being aggressive towards me, then I'll just say, just give it a go for a week. Just try it for a week, honestly. And again, I'm now at a place where I know that it's not a diet, but for me, like I said earlier, it feels like that's going to be the in for people. If I can appeal to something that's going to benefit them, like from a completely selfish point of view, then, and they try it, and then they you know, a week later they wake up and think, wow, I actually feel a lot better than I did last week, you know, and maybe I don't need that egg, you know, that egg on toast or whatever in the morning, or that milk in my coffee, or bacon sandwich. And then I feel like then if you've kind of got an in with them, then hopefully it will grow into something that I've seen myself with myself. So that's what I try to do, just try to appeal to people's selfishness, which I think kind of works for a lot of people, because we are innately selfish creatures, aren't we?
What, apart from probably go and ask somebody else? No,
Yeah,
I would not do that.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that. I think I would say what I wish somebody had said to me when I went vegan, which is don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Just focus on your own vegan journey. However vegan you are, there'll always be somebody more vegan than you. There'll always be somebody who thinks you've got some aspect of veganism wrong, or, you know, okay, you're doing that bit great, but you need to be doing something else. And, you know, you can tie yourself up in knots with it. So I think just do your own thing. Whatever your vegan journey is, it'll be right for you. So if you want to go vegan overnight, great, do it. If you want to take your time, you know, change one part of your diet at a time, that's fine as well. If you've got a load of stuff in the fridge and you just want to gradually use it up before you go vegan, that's fine to do that. If you'd rather give it all away to somebody else because you can't face eating it, that's fine. Just do whatever you need to do to go vegan and don't worry about anybody else. I think that would be my advice. I just feel like we need more imperfect vegans rather than a small number of perfect vegans, because collectively the change is bigger.
First of all, think about the reason why you're going vegan. Veganism is about justice against the use of animals, the exploitation of animals. I think when you really keep that in mind, it should make it more easy to do the practical side of veganism, you know, when you keep that in mind. Yeah, everybody sometimes has difficult moments when it's difficult, or social situations, but when you keep that in mind, that should make it easier. But then, yeah, and also that veganism, you know, the definition also says as far as possible and practicable, you know, so yeah, in certain situations, maybe it won't be possible to avoid using animal products, but if there are alternatives, use the alternatives. And as far as possible and practicable is very important, because there are situations, perhaps people with disabilities or people who don't have financial access to certain things, or like people living in food deserts and you know, areas where they cannot access fresh food and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, as far as possible and practicable is really important to remember when you feel you are struggling. The availability of alternatives, yeah, that there have to be alternatives to be able to live vegan, to fully without the use of animal products, of course. So keep that in mind. Don't beat yourself up about it if you make a mistake or if it's not really possible. And yeah, on the practical side, then if you go on a holiday or if you go to a restaurant, always be prepared, I would say. Even to this day, when we go on holiday, we always carry some vegan energy bars that we are prepared for situations that we don't find any restaurants or shops or something like that. Maybe when you're in a total rural area where there's hardly any shops, so that you always have some vegan energy bars, and you can easily survive for a day on energy bars, you know. And for restaurants, when you go on restaurants, don't expect the waiters and the staff. If you say, oh, I would like to have a vegan dish, if it's in a non-vegan restaurant, of course, and sometimes, yeah, you end up in a non-vegan restaurant because you're with other people who are perhaps non-vegan. don't expect the waiters or the staff to know exactly what vegan means. I would say my advice would be always spell out vegan means no animal products, and that means no meat, no fish, no dairy, blah blah blah, and also give some alternatives. It means I can eat fruit and veggies and nuts and seeds and sauces with soy milk. So to give them an idea, because yeah, in the beginning we've had situations like we just said, oh, we're vegan, can you give us something vegan please, thinking that yeah, they work in a restaurant, they must know what vegan means. And then yeah, that didn't always end well, you know. So it's still important to spell it out, to say what vegan really entails. That would be a practical tip.
What's your favourite vegan product at the moment?
I wouldn't say I really use vegan products as such. However, there are a few things that I really love. So number one, nutritional yeast. That stuff goes on everything. Everything, anything and everything has nutritional yeast on it. So I buy it like 2 kilos at a time.
Wow.
So yeah.
You're not joking, are you?
No. I love it.
I just took a minute to register that. Sorry, 2 kilos.
Yeah.
It doesn't weigh anything. It doesn't weigh
I know,
to it.
bags are humongous.
You could use it as a pillow.
Yeah, you probably could actually. Yeah, honestly, you have to do it. Are you even vegan if you haven't bought 2 kilos of nutritional yeast? So yeah.
Right, so we're not vegan.
Here we go. I'm more vegan than you.
You're only a level 6, yeah.
I would say my guilty pleasure in food is chocolate. I like good chocolate. And Ombar is our little addiction. It's a Cambridgeshire-based company as well.
Quite a big addiction.
Quite a big addiction. But so we buy bulk boxes from their website direct from them. It's that bad.
Wow.
But it's really good stuff. Really good stuff. And it's they've changed over and being like coconut based, and they're doing an oat milk based one. So it's really ethical, and it's like better for the environment, because obviously the lower carbon footprint and everything. So we kid ourselves we're doing the planet some good by eating this particular chocolate. Just so happens it's really nice.
Wild and Furrow Oat Milk. So they are a business or company local to me, or localish to me, and they produce their own oat milk. They grow it, they produce it locally, they put it in reusable glass bottles, so it's super local, super environmentally friendly. Ooh. And it just tastes amazing. So I really love that.
It's a clothing company, and they do vegan branded clothing, but it's kind of a bit more subtle than some of the stuff that you sometimes see where it's really splashed over. It's called Vegan Happy, and they do some really nice clothing, not just t-shirts and hoodies and stuff. They do sort of sportswear and things as well, and quite a lot of it is just a really subtle little label that just says Vegan Happy on the thing, really subtle, just to start that conversation. It might just say something on the sleeve, I really like their range.
I also love Louisa's vegan chocolates. So Louisa hand makes vegan chocolates in a little shop in Nottingham, and she buys all the cocoa herself from suppliers in wherever you get cocoa from, like cocoa producing countries. So it's all really, really fair trade. She pays proper wages to cocoa growers and so on. And the chocolate is just amazing. It's really, really good. She posts it out. So definitely go and buy Louisa's vegan chocolates.
I really like cars. And one of my biggest frustrations is the interiors and the so I think there is a shift that's happening. So I'm really lucky that I'm in a position that I could get a Tesla, and a Tesla interior is there's no leather, but there's so many other cars that are even sort of saying that they're moving to sustainable materials or sustainable leather. And it's I know exactly, yeah. But then even the steering wheel, they might do the whole of the rest of the interior as sort of synthetic, and then a leather wrapped steering wheel. So that's my bugbear. but I mean, I love my Tesla. It's fantastic.
I also really love Frida's peanut butter. So that's produced in Cornwall, and they do the most amazing. So peanut butter is the other thing that I love. If you cut me open, I would be made of nutritional yeast and peanut butter. And they produce it in like these amazing flavors. So you can get like chocolate orange peanut butter, and in winter they do like mulled fruit peanut butter and all kinds of really cool flavors. And it's all vegan and it's amazing. So definitely everyone should try Frida's peanut butter. And then the last one, I promise that's going to be it, is Hodmedod's beans and grains. And the reason I love them is because I eat loads and loads of beans and lentils and grains. I'm just kind of old school like that. But I love the fact that they produce it all in the UK. I think one of the things that people really love to try and catch vegans out on is that we apparently have all our food flown in from overseas. And we don't, because you can grow it all in this country. So everybody go out and buy things from Hodmedod's because they grow it all in the UK.
Right, so being a devout meat eater for 42 years of my life, and obviously missing the taste of meat and not wanting the cruelty that goes with it, I've been looking for lots of plant-based meat alternatives. And Costco have brought out something called chicken. So it's chicken, but change the C for an S. And I don't know if you guys have got Costco memberships or you know someone that has them, but if you get a chance, ask them to get you some chicken tikka kebabs. They are amazing, absolutely amazing. They taste so good. It's one of those ones where I'm gonna, next time I have anyone round, like my mum and my dad and my brothers, I'm gonna cook them. Imagine, and I'm gonna do something separate for me and cook them. I'll put the meat version for you and won't say anything and see if they notice. And I don't think they will. You know, so I love them, and I love them. The Richmond meat-free sausages as well.
Yes,
because you're getting a really good sausage sandwich, and you know you're not getting any toenails or eyelashes or anything like that in it. You know.
I'm a really fan of the vegan cheeses, the Camemberti, and that's by a Dutch brand, Rosie and Riffy, they are called. And that's
I'm gonna have to look that up.
That's my favorite one. Yeah. And it's really like a camembert, you know, camembert, the French cheeses. Yeah, and it's really good.
What's the best thing about being vegan?
So for me, I would say just having a clear conscience about things, knowing that I'm not willingly taking the life of something or someone else for me to exist. I don't need to do that. And that's quite a weight off your shoulders if you care about animals, to actually be able to align those morals and actions, I think. It's also, I think, for me, just meeting so many amazing people. And I don't know about how the vegans feel this way. Chris and I both discussed this. And like when we go to a vegan runners meetup and you see someone in that vegan runners top and you instantly know, I know something really deep about that person. I know how their morals lie. The most important thing about that person, I know, just from seeing them. And you know you're going to get on, even if it's just on that basis. You've got nothing else in common other than that. You've got a connection, which I don't think you kind of get in any other, certainly not in my life. I've never had that kind of thing. Just meeting so many wonderful people that have sort of influenced me, and just this sort of opened up a totally different side of things for me.
It's the same. It's the moral compass for me. It's that connection, that deep connection of knowing what's important, and you don't often meet sort of vegans who are not really, really nice people. So
that's a very good point.
The best thing, I think that's an easy one. It's just knowing that you are doing what you can to reduce animal suffering. I think that's why pretty much all of us are vegan. That, and there's huge environmental benefits as well. We know that a plant-based diet has a much lower carbon footprint, potentially less water use. You could potentially feed more people on a plant-based diet. So for me, those are the two kind of big wins about being vegan.
I've got involved with, I volunteer for an animal sanctuary in Spain called Jacob's Ridge. And so I do their fundraising. So I don't have to go to Spain to do it. Yeah, just sort of meeting people in those circles that work in animal rescue. And you just wouldn't do that without having that connection with being vegan. So yeah, that's what's the most important thing for me, I think.
I think for me, I know I mentioned it earlier, but I think being a voice for the voiceless, because I can imagine that, you know, if I was to put myself in their shoes, and I wish I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and you can imagine just how miserable their entire short lives are. If they knew that of this horrible race, it's a bit like, I mean, I guess if we was to be invaded by aliens and they started harvesting us, you know, and you knew amongst all those aliens there were a few that actually were trying to keep like they had our back, you know, and they were like, we don't actually want to see these humans harmed like they are. And I feel like that's what we are to them. We're the good guys for them, you know, and yeah, just being that voice for the voiceless. It's something that you know, I get really thinking. It's one of those things where I don't know if you guys are the same, but although I'm aware of everything that happens, I try not to overthink it too much because it is so horrific, you know, what happens to them. But knowing that I'm just doing and it is just a very, very small bit myself, but being on social media, doing that TikTok account, trying to talk to the trolls and, you know, even convert one I'd be happy with. I feel like I'm just trying my best to do whatever I can for them. And it's a nice feeling to know that I'm trying and I've got their back, you know.
Well, trying all those nice new foods and discovering all new products, especially the last couple of years, when we go on a holiday, also on a city trip. It's now like our city trips are centered around looking up the restaurants and the vegan shops and oh yeah, and accidentally there's a museum around the corner, maybe we can go there, but you know, yeah, it's discovering all those new platforms and initiatives. That's very nice, but yeah, that's merely practical. But actually the nicest thing is realizing that you don't participate anymore in animal abuse, that you don't, when I live on the countryside, you know, so I'm surrounded by fields of cows, and I hear sometimes pigs screaming in the distance, and sometimes you can hear them screaming when they come to take them from the farm to go to the slaughterhouse.
That must be really hard.
Yeah, that's very hard. And sometimes even the bellowing of the cows that who have had their calves taken away from them, so that's really hard to hear. But the only thing that I can't intervene, you can't do anything about that at that moment. But what is sort of comforting for me then is to know that I'm not participating in that it's not because of me that is happening. So I'm not the cause of that anymore. So there's a famous quote by Franz Kafka, he was an Austrian, I think, an Austrian writer. You've certainly heard the quote before. Now I can look at you and in peace, I don't eat you anymore. And I have that feeling when sometimes we go cycling here in the countryside and we see the fields with the cows. And then I always realize, yeah, in a couple of months or weeks or maybe even days, they will go to the slaughterhouse. But then I can look at them and I can say, it's not because of me. It's yeah, my conscience is clear with that respect. It's not because of me.
Who is your vegan inspiration?
Do you know, I thought long and hard about this. So I'm not really somebody who follows things like social media particularly. I mean, obviously, you know, this podcast and Matt, your vegan Matt page obviously is completely my inspiration. You're probably the only vegan.
Stop there, that's it. That's the answer. What we need.
That's all right, I'm going to edit the rest. That's all I'm putting in.
No, seriously, you're probably the only vegan I follow on social media because I don't really do following kind of so-called like celebrity vegans and stuff like that because I just don't relate.
I would say probably in terms of like activists, if you like, Joey Carbstrong or Earthling Ed. Earthling Ed was actually the person who got me involved in activism because it was something that I had been sort of toying with, and at that time Chris wasn't vegan, and it kind of felt weird for me to go out and tell other people to change when I couldn't change, and not change him, but you know what I mean, to influence that change in him. How was I going to do that to somebody else? And we went along to Vegan Life Live at Alexandra Palace or something like that, isn't it?
I think so.
And one year, and Earthling Ed was giving a speech, and whole room in tears at the end, you know, as these things are, really, really traumatic. And at the end went up and spoke to him, and he was saying as part of his speech that it's not enough to just be vegan. That's the least you do. Unless you influence others, nothing goes anywhere. Nothing changes. And I realized at that moment that I needed to do more. It was my obligation to the animals to do more than just sit back and go, well, I've sorted me out. Everyone else can just get on with it. So for me, that moment, he influenced me to get involved with animal activism and hopefully educate others. And then Joey, I mean, everyone loves Joey, don't they? He's so good at what he does, and very different style to Ed, definitely. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the other influences, I think, the positive people that I'm around, the people who are out there day after day, sort of either working in sanctuaries that I know, or sort of doing activism in the streets, in the rain, in the winter, you know, just trying to bring about that change. They're the true heroes, I think, that will never have a YouTube channel and never have a Patreon account, you know, the ones that are out there actually getting their hands dirty every day.
Well, let me give you two. One is Carrie, and I'll tell you why in a second. But there was also, I remember, I think I was just turning vegan, or not long being vegan, and we went to Veg Fest, and we were listening to Vegan Smythe. And
if anyone hasn't looked up Vegan Smythe, he's amazing.
I think he's an Australian politician or something.
He is a politician, yeah.
But
Vegan Smythe.
Vegan Smythe, yeah.
Yeah, but he wrote and performed music, didn't he? Yeah. Songs, vegan songs.
It's all vegan songs.
And that was kind of, it was a no BS kind of straight to the point song.
Yeah.
But quite.
Is it Where Have All the Boy Chicks Gone?
Yeah, and it's
that
just
one,
kind of.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's one's about horse racing, and
yeah,
it's got a very funny one called Where'd You Get Your Protein, which is very funny.
So that kind of reinforced it, but yeah, I mean, as you can probably predict, I mean, I think Carrie's been an inspiration, but for a couple of reasons, not just because I've been a very, very delayed sort of on that journey, long-term
project.
Yeah, exactly. but I think for another a really significant reason, I think, is that I've kind of come to realize that although I'm not the kind of person that is, you know, out there and fighting and campaigning and doing activism, you know, not just with veganism, but just in general, I think the world needs people that stand up with a voice. And I'm not really that kind of person, but I thoroughly appreciate that Carrie is. And as Carrie said, you know, all those people that do, because I think you do need people to fight for change. And you know, some of the more significant change that has happened in the course of history has happened because people have put themselves out there and really fought for it.
I tend to be very much inspired by people who are just kind of getting on and doing cool stuff in their life, but they also happen to be vegan. So I'm just thinking, somebody who springs to mind, and I wouldn't say he's an inspiration in the sense that I'm kind of following in his footsteps, but I have huge admiration for what he's done. He's again another vegan runner, Tim. You know Tim, don't you? Big Tim.
Yes.
Lovely Big Tim, who has been doing so much training recently for, it was a marathon, wasn't it? He did. And he got himself a coach and joined, you know, a local running club, and he just put the hard graft in and did this amazing marathon. It was just fantastic. And I love to be able to, people like that I find really inspiring, because I can look at that and go, do you know what, actually, if I wanted to, which I don't, but if I wanted to, I could do that. I have no excuse not to be able to do that, because that is just an ordinary person doing this really amazing thing, and they're vegan. And I love that. So it's the ordinary vegans doing fantastic stuff. Yeah, I love that. That's the kind of stuff that inspires me.
So I follow a few guys on YouTube, and the three main ones that I really like are Joey Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, and Humane Hancock. Now, as I'm sure you guys have heard of them as well. Humane
Not
Hancock.
the last one.
No.
Humane Hancock.
No.
Yeah, he's very, very similar to Earthling Ed.
Okay.
Yeah, and his dad works in a slaughterhouse, but I think he's been vegan for a few years. He's relatively young. He's quite similar age actually to Earthling Ed, but he does a lot of similar things. But he goes to Speaker's Corner quite a lot, and the guy has got such a thick skin, very, very intelligent, and I love listening to his arguments because every argument that he makes, and I know it's really hard to take your bias away. So I'm watching it, I'm a vegan, I'm watching it, and you want to be behind the vegan. But I promise, if you watch it, he never makes a logical fallacy. He never does. He's really sharp with all his arguments. And he gets abuse, he gets people shouting at him, but he just takes it, and then comes back with a logical response.
Wow.
I love this. He's got the same kind of temperament as Earthling Ed, that kind of calm, whereas Joey Carbstrong is the opposite end of the spectrum, and I like him, and I feel like they say about the different when you the different stages of grief. I feel like there's the different stages of becoming vegan, and I went for a few months. I went through the aggressive stage of just hating everyone that eats meat. I just can't stand it. I want to argue with everybody, and you kind of that Joey Carbstrong sort of represents that initial kind of feeling I had, where I just want to be aggressive with everyone, and I don't personally think it works converting or persuading someone to become vegan, but I think if you are vegan and you're watching it, it's quite enjoyable because again he's normally sound with his arguments, so you kind of agree with him. Whereas I think Earthling Ed and Humane Hancock, they're very calm, and I think if they were going to ever kind of say convert, it's not the right word, is it, but persuade people to kind of think about it and potentially become vegan, and they're the guys I think that they inspire me, and they inspire me when I'm on social media, because I use a lot of the arguments. I use them, and it because I know they are logically sound. All the arguments they make are logically sound.
Well, it may be strange to say, but I don't really consider myself a foodie. That although my Instagram and my blog is mainly focused on food, the Bruges Vegan, but yeah, I was always more like an animal rights activist, and yeah, I get so many inspiration for food from Instagram and so many blogs, and it would not be fair just to take out one. I would say that my inspiration has always been more like on the theoretical side, the animal rights things, and there are two people that I would like to mention, and I already mentioned her in the beginning, and that's Carol Adams. And her most well-known book is The Sexual Politics of Meat, where she explores the intersections between sexism and speciesism, and how eating meat is seen as masculine, and how veganism, vegetarianism is seen as something feminine, as something less worthy in a patriarchal society. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely recommend reading up her work, The Sexual Politics of Meat. And then there's another author, and that's David Niebert. He's a sociologist, and he has written a lot on the interconnections between animal rights and human rights. So that's also been a big inspiration for me, because I'm not only an animal rights activist, but I really believe in total liberation. I think that all discriminations like speciesism, sexism, racism, ableism as well, they are all interconnected with one another in a total system of oppression. And you can't just single out one of them, like speciesism, and say, oh, we're just going to focus on the animals. No, I think it's all connected with each other. And in that book by David Niebert, it's really explained very well how it's interconnected with one another, and that you cannot see it separately.
What's your favourite vegan venue or restaurant?
We've got quite a few, not loads, but quite a few in Cambridge, haven't we? Which is our nearest big place. So Stem and Glory
Mm.
in Cambridge. That's good. They've got one in London as well. And they do quite good food in there. Tipsy Vegan have opened in Cambridge. Their first one was in Norwich. And
Tipsy Vegan.
Tipsy Vegan.
Yeah.
They do cocktails and stuff as well, mocktails. But yeah,
Right.
really good food. It's like a tapasy kind of vibe. But yeah, they've got a really nice site in Cambridge, right on the river. So you can get pestered to go punting and then go and have a vegan meal. So it's quite good.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a few.
You wouldn't expect me to give any different answer, really, would you? But I must admit, because we went on holiday to Barcelona once, and we did a vegan food tour.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And that was good. That was pretty special. And I can't remember any of the names of the
like
restaurants.
5 places, and we ended up at a place that just did desserts.
Wow.
Wasn't it at the end?
No, we had our dessert there.
They did dessert. So it was basically they just
But
served dessert
it
stuff and alcohol.
It was a
amazing.
super. I mean,
It was
really.
amazing.
I mean, Stem and Glory in Cambridge is quite. I think they broke the mold a little bit in the UK, because they kind of was pitching for really high quality. I mean, I'm sure it loads in London, but certainly in Cambridge for really high quality and slightly higher.
The usual burgers and
Yeah,
stuff,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this place in Barcelona was like something else. I
Mm.
mean, yeah.
I think it's quite nice when you travel around and just try different vegan restaurants and things. Like we used to live in Italy, and in Venice there's one vegan restaurant in Venice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really, really nice food, nice atmosphere, and
Yeah.
but yeah, it's sort of just not on the main sort of bit. You have to walk to get it. You have to earn your food.
But we
yeah, it's quite
plan. No,
Happy
sorry,
cow is-
sorry. I plan to the nth degree our holidays and trips and stuff like that. And,
usually
and-
around food,
and it's
isn't
it's pretty much around Happy Cow.
it? Using the app
Yeah.
to find vegan places.
Happy Cow is an absolute godsend, isn't it? A number of times I've been away with work or whatever, and just put it in and off you go. There's always something.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Yeah.
very useful.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Forkies in Czech Republic. A couple of Forkies restaurants in Czech Republic. They're very good.
Forkies. Okay, I like that.
Somewhere a bit different.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So I just want to give a little mention to somewhere that has literally just closed its doors, actually near me a couple of days ago. I think it was, they closed. So lovely little cafe called Luck and Boo, who did really fantastic vegan food. And I think basically they just took a big hit during COVID and never really bounced back, which was a real shame. So hopefully they're going to go on and do other wonderful vegan things in the future, but they will be very, very much missed. But in terms of places that are not closed, there is a fantastic vegan restaurant and takeaway down in Dorset, which is somewhere I like to go on holiday. And they're brilliant because they deliver to the campsite I stay at. I mean, how amazing is that I can go and stay on a campsite and I can get vegan food like delivered to
That
me.
is brilliant.
It's so cool. And I think they're vegetarian and vegan, but yeah, loads of really, really good vegan stuff, and just everything is amazing. Like they do this wonderful mac and cheese with like herby greens in it, and lovely desserts, and amazing burgers and pita boxes, and just it's everything is so good, and it's amazing. I love it. And if they open up in the East Midlands, I would be, if they want to franchise up in this part of the country, I would be so happy.
What's the name of it, Hannah?
It's V Dorset.
Oh, as simple as that. V Dorset. Yeah. And you endorse it, V Dorset?
I highly endorse it.
Have you been to the restaurant? It's a takeaway, the Temple of Setan.
Do you know what? It's around the back of King's Cross, isn't it? And
yes.
I've seen it. I've been past it so many times, and it's never been at a time that I'm going to eat. That's
okay,
so frustrating.
Well, that's a shame. That's a real shame. But it's quite pricey, so it's definitely a treat meal, and it kind of, I guess for me and anyone that's vegan that misses the taste of like fried chicken, they've got it almost spot on. I mean, obviously it's seitan that's inside it, but it's amazing, absolutely amazing. And they do not just sort of the mock fried chicken, but they do, especially, do you know, this is because they close at midnight as well. So if you find yourself had a few drinks, okay, and you want some really stodgy food, they do this don. Obviously, it's not real doner meat; it's the seitan, but it's basically a big portion of chips with all the seitan on top, shaped like kebab meat, and then loads of burger sauce, loads of mayonnaise. It's just proper junk food, but it tastes so good, and it's a real junk food hit. Fantastic, I love it.
That's really difficult to choose, to single one out. But there's one shop that I would really like to mention in Bruges, and it's a vegan shop. And it's not just like a shop where you buy where you buy clothes or anything, or where you can, but it's a vegan traiteur. Do you know the word traiteur? No, that's a Dutch French word. It's like a butcher shop, but a vegan butcher shop.
Okay.
What?
But yeah, in a butcher shop they sell prepared food as well. They sell things like oven dishes and butcher shops in the UK they do, or they do in Belgium. So this is like a vegan shop that sells freshly homemade prepared food. You understand? Like bread spreads and lasagna and stews, and that you can buy just to take home and to put in the oven, or to and they also sell vegan cheeses and vegan cakes and vegan pie. So you have everything in one shop vegan. So that's the name of the place is Forest Food. So that's a shop that I think every town, every street should have a shop like that instead of a butcher shop,
If you want to get involved, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for How I Vegan Podcast.